Hey gang, Mr. C here, and I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about mole conversions again, just in general. One way to visually kind of represent like what a mole looks like when we talk about moles in general is we can picture moles as being this thing that's kind of like in the center. So like whenever we do two-step mole conversions, um, moles, like we have to go through moles first. But also, like anytime we do any sort of mole conversion, we are either going away from moles or we're going to moles. So on this side, we're going to moles, and on this side, we're going away from moles. And when we go to moles, we really have three different things that we could be starting. We could be starting with liters or volume. We could be starting with molecules or particles, or sometimes they're referred to as atoms, depending on how many of them we have. And then we also have mass that we could start out with. And those are like the three things that we can start with. When we're talking about going to moles, so anytime we're going to the mole, we're always going to multiply, or not multiply, sorry, we're going to divide. So anytime we start out with liters, we start out with molecules, we start out with mass, we always want to divide by a number, and that number is going to be our conversion factor here. So in the case of when we're talking about looking at liters and volume, the number that we're going to want to divide by, so like we'll have like whatever the liters is up here, but we want to divide by 22.4. When we talk about molecules or particles, the number of molecules we have is on top, and the number that we want to divide by will always be 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. And we're going to want to make sure to use parentheses on that one because of scientific notation. And when we talk about mass, we want to take the mass that we have, and we're going to be dividing that by the molar mass. So that's anytime we are going to moles. So like liters into moles, we divide by 22.4. When we talk about molecules into moles, we're dividing by 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. And we're talking about mass into moles, we're going to be dividing by the molar mass. So that's anytime we go to moles. So we're starting with something that is not a mole. We always want to divide first. So whether it be a one-step problem or a two-step problem, if it's a one-step problem, you divide by whatever that number is, and boom, you got your moles, you have your answer. If it's your two-step problem, you still have to divide first. So based on what you have, determines what you divide by. So you start with liters, you divide by 22.4. You start with molecules, we're going to divide by 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. And we start with mass, we're going to divide by the molar mass. Our other conversion is we're going away from moles. And what that means is that we are starting with moles. So like in the problem, it says we have 7 moles of a substance, or we have 8 moles of a substance, or 9 moles of a substance. But anytime we start with moles, we want to multiply. Or if it helps you think about it, you can think of it as multiply. Because when you start with moles, we always multiply. And just like we had with going to moles, when we go away from moles, we can go to one of three things. We can go to liters or volume. We can go into molecules, which are the same thing as particles, which are the same thing as atoms. Or we can go into mass. So like we can say, what is the mass if we have like 6 moles of a substance? When we deal with liters, what we want to do is we want to take the number of moles that we have, and we're going to multiply that number by 22.4, because anytime we deal with liters, no matter what the substance is, we are going to be multiplying by 22.4, and that's because we're at something called STP, which we don't need to know about now. We'll learn more about that later on in chemistry. When we talk about molecules, particles, and atoms, what we want to do is we want to take the number of moles that we have, and we're going to multiply that by 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. So once again, it doesn't matter what the atom is, we are going to want to multiply by 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. And then the very last thing here for mass is we want to take the mass that, not the mass that we have, we want to take the moles that we're starting with, so however many moles we have, and we're going to multiply that by the molar mass. So the only time that a number changes is when we're dealing with mass, is when we deal with mass. We do have to figure out that molar mass, which depends upon the subject, or what, not the subject, but what the molecule is. When we talk about liters and molecules, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that 22.4. But when we go away from moles, we always multiply. So for liters, we're multiplying by 22.4. For molecules, we're multiplying by 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. And then for mass, we are multiplying by our molar mass. And that's how we're going to tackle any kind of mole conversion here. Is we always have to figure out like what it is we have and what it is we want. And like if we have liters and want moles, well, then we divide by 22.4. But if we have, say, moles and we want mass, well, then we could take however many moles we have and multiply by our molar mass down here. So this is a more visual way of looking at molar mass and mole conversion.